Hello and welcome to News Now. I am Deji Badimasi. At long last, the Nigerian Senate has screened the former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, for the position of minister in President Muhammadu Buhari's cabinet. Amechi's screening had been shifted several times over petitions filed against his nomination by some individuals believed to be acting for the Rivers State government. But Amechi's screening was not without some drama, as PDP senators refused to ask him questions after Minority Leader Godswill Akpabio had announced that PDP senators would not join in questioning Amechi until the report on the nominee by the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges had been debated. Majority Leader Alin Dume then suggested that being a one-time lawmaker, Amechi should be allowed to take a bow and go, but that was overruled by Senate President Bukola Saraki, who asked the former governor to answer a few questions. Now, only APC senators asked questions as their PDP counterparts maintained a studied silence. Amechi spoke on issues ranging from corruption to the rate of unemployment and development of the agricultural sector. And with the report of the Rivers State Commission of Inquiry, Amechi argued that there was nowhere in the entire report where he was indicted. The Senate resumed plenary Thursday and continued screening ministerial nominees presented by President Buhari. It had actually adjourned its sitting on Tuesday following the appearance of the Senate President at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, where he is standing trial for false declaration of assets. Now, Amechi's screening follows the submission of the long-awaited report of the Ethics and Privileges Committee of the Senate, which investigated the petitions against him.
When you deal with the issue of massive unemployment, you deal with the change in the economic mantra. The mono-economic situation where we have, monocropping economic situation that we have cannot survive. The Nigeria cannot continue to be what we are if we continue to just rely on oil. For me, I agree with the president that there is a need to invest in agriculture. When we went to Germany, there was no natural resources that we met. Now, if we invest in agriculture and invest in technology, you would hire as many workers as possible. In the course of campaign, I discovered that in Borno, we were seeing watermelon that were grown naturally. If you plant just 100,000 hectares of watermelon in Borno, if you encourage it by disbursing funds to responsible farmers, and you have 100,000 hectares of farmland planting watermelon alone in Borno, you can be sure to engage more than 30,000 workers.
The former governor of Rivers State answering questions there from senators of the APC. Now, the Akwa Ibom State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal sitting in Abuja has nullified the April 11 election in 18 out of the 31 local government areas of the state. That's in South Nigeria. The Justice Sadiq Umar-led tribunal in its judgment also ordered a rerun of the elections in the affected local government areas. It said it was satisfied there was inconsistencies during the governorship election held on April 11. Justice Umar said the testimony of one of the witnesses, Don Etiebet, a former member of the PDP Board of Trustees, was convincing and reliable to the effect that election did not hold where he voted. The judgment was, however, not clear on whether incumbent Governor Udom Emmanuel should vacate office. Meanwhile, Governor Emmanuel has been reacting to the judgment. He said it is a clear indication that, contrary to the allegation of the petitioner and his party, elections did hold in the state and that he remains the governor, having been voted by the people of Akwa Ibom. He re-echoed the position of his legal team on the possibility of testing the judgment in the appellate court and asked the people of the state to be calm and law-abiding in the face of the judgment. INEC had declared Udom Emmanuel winner of the controversial April 11 election, polling a total of 996,071 votes ahead of the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Umana Okon Umana, who got 89,865 votes. The APC had challenged the outcome of the election at the tribunal and now says even though judgment was given in its favor, it will still appeal against the ruling of the tribunal for remaining silent on the status of the governor after it had ordered a rerun in 18 of the 13 local government areas of the state. Now, no date has been fixed for the election rerun. To shed more light on this seeming controversial judgment, I'm now being joined by Liberos Oshoma lawyer. Liberals, thank you very much for joining us on TV360 News. Let me start by asking you, the controversy this judgment is generating, what in your opinion could be the possible reason why the tribunal decided not to say that the governor should be removed from office if the tribunal actually invalidated elections in 18 out of 31 local government areas? Because if you do the mathematics, it means the governor would not have been able to score 24%. I mean, yeah, that is 1/4 of the votes in 2/3 of the local government areas of the state.
Yeah, basically, even though I have not read the judgment in detail, this morning when I heard, or yesterday evening, I read some part of the judgment where the court nullified the election in the 18 local government of the 31 local government. I was expecting that since by virtue of section 179 subsection 2 paragraph B of the 1999 Constitution, that for you to be declared a winner, you must have scored at least 25% of the votes in 2/3 of the local government in the state. At 2/3 of the local government in the state, it would approximately be 21 local government. And so, having not, with the results that have come in so far, or the results as announced, as sustained by the tribunal, one would have expected that 13, not being up to the 2/3 in 31, one would have expected that the local government, the tribunal would have asked the governor to vacate the seat pending the conclusion of the election in the remaining 18 local government. But also, we also heard that basically what happened is that it is not in all the entire local government that elections were cancelled. That the tribunal nullified election, that is some polling units in most parts of this local government, and that polling units in some of these local governments were still retained. And so the total votes counted for the PDP candidate, the governorship, the current governor, came to 440-something thousand, while that of the APC is 30-something thousand. And you would agree that 440-something thousand as against 30-something thousand is a way, it's a big stretch. But by and large, if that is the case, that it is not the vote in the entire 18 local government, it is most polling units in the 18 local government, then the tribunal can't say that since it wasn't the entire local government, since there were still some polling units in those local governments retained, then that's probably why they did not ask the governor to vacate. But still, I would have expected that as it stands, that going by that section of the Constitution that I cited, that everybody know, that it would have been tidier for the tribunal to ask INEC, to ask the governor to vacate, so that INEC will conduct a fresh election in those 18 local governments, and whoever emerges the winner would have, will be seen in the eye of the law to have won.
I mean, you're quite right, because I was actually going to ask you. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that, look, if the tribunal, even if the tribunal said, look, it did not cancel the entire elections in all the 18 local government areas, that it's just some polling units. But if the outcome, if the result can make any difference, and of course it would appear the result could make a difference, and that's the reason it has decided to ask for a rerun. If the results, the eventual outcome could make a difference to the election, to who emerges the winner, then in that case, it means substantially you should not have a governor in place. But that is just by the way. But do you think the tribunal just decided to stay silent on this? Because whether we like it or not, after making that pronouncement, it could be inferred that it has ordered that the governor should cease to hold the office of the governor, but that in any case, the governor would not be expected to leave office because he still has the right of appeal and could actually appeal against the ruling. But
I expected the tribunal to make a categorical statement on that. Being silent on the matter, could be inferred, could imply that, because since the tribunal did not make a categorical statement on that, the only conclusion what is best said What is not expressly stated, is deemed not to have been stated. And so, if the tribunal was silent on it, you cannot say that the tribunal had asked the governor to vacate. But basically, even if you look at the number of registered voters, the actual number of voters, and the total number of voters, the issue, and in the number, there is no way the number of registered voters in 18 local government will be less than the number of registered voters in 13 local government. There is no way it's going to be possible. And so even in 18 local governments where elections are being conducted, it might also be possible that the candidate of the APC can pull majority votes in this area. That is why I think it would have been tidier. Haven't gotten to that point where the tribunal nullifies election in 18 local government. It would have just been tidier for the tribunal to say, as it stands now, with the constitutional provision in mind, it will be tidier for the governor to vacate out of office and let the speaker, take over that position until a fresh election is conducted in those local governments. It would have been tidier that way. But here we always want to vote tenaciously to office, and that we always leave things hanging. I think the tribunal left something hanging. But if they had made that, pronouncement, I don't think anybody would have wanted to go on appeal. Because even if you go on appeal, the worst case, the Court of Appeal will still say, go conduct election. That's worst case scenario. So I think parties would have decided, to face the election rather than wasting money going on appeal. But the judgment being inconclusive, somebody will want the Court of Appeal to make a pronouncement on it.
Well, let me just ask you very, very quickly, because we haven't got time on our hands now. What do you make of the decision by both sides now to head to the Court of Appeal? The APC, which got this judgment in its favor, has said it is going to the Court of Appeal for proper clarification, and the PDP too is appealing against it.
Yeah, the PDP will file a cross appeal saying that the election in the 18 local government ought not to have been cancelled, while the APC will maintain that having cancelled the election in 18 local government, that it would have been proper to ask the governor to vacate the seat, pending when the first election will be conducted. So there will be cross appeal on both sides. That's why I said the decision is inconclusive, and so that is why you find out that both parties, the judgment is halfway here, halfway there, and so it has not properly addressed all of the issues that were submitted before the courts.
Liberos Oshoma, a lawyer, thank you very much for joining us on TV360 News for your thoughts there. Now, the former acting chairman of INEC, Amina Zakari, has made a public presentation of the 2015 general elections report in Abuja. The presentation, which could rightly be described as her valedictory official duty, comes a day after the Council of State approved the appointment of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu as the substantive chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. While describing election as not mere events but a process, she said the general elections report is far from a finished material due to unfolding developments in the election petitions tribunal. She, however, added that consequent upon the final verdict of the election petition tribunals, some of the outcomes and data as encapsulated in the 2015 general elections report might slightly change.
As you're all aware, election is not an event, but a process. In that regard, the report of the 2015 general elections can by no means therefore be regarded as exhaustive, because there are still unfolding developments, especially as regards to ongoing activities in the election petition tribunals. It is to be noted, however, that election tribunals are part and parcel of the electoral process. By the time the tribunals are done with their cases on the 2015 general elections, it is most likely that some of the outcomes and data on the polls, as encapsulated in this report, might slightly alter. But nothing will by no means detract from the overall verdict of Nigerians and the international community on the conduct of the 2015 general elections. It is anticipated that there may not be any significant change in the current data reflected in this report. The reason being that the number of election petitions have been on the decline since the tenure of Professor Tarid Jiga's administration of INEC, which ended in 2015.
Now, it's been over a decade since the Nigerian national carrier Nigeria Airways officially folded up operations after accumulating a huge debt as a result of mismanagement and corruption. But in April this year, President Muhammadu Buhari asked the country's aviation authorities to commence work to re-establish a national carrier for Nigeria. Aviation experts, however, warning that the president could be toying with a venture that may not fly. Here's what one expert had to say about the issue.
I don't think, kindly speaking, that the government is trying to float a national carrier at this time. I think it's a group of people that have suggested to the government to look into a national carrier. But as I have always said, and as I've told the government when they asked me, the people are looking at it from a myopic point of view, not having a bird-eye view of the situation on ground. A national carrier, as I say, is a thing of the past. The countries that had national carrier was a thing of fashion after the Second World War, when people were flying national flags and national carriers around to show their presence around the world. But between 1934 and today, 2015, 98% of those national carriers don't exist anymore because people have found out that government really does not have business in business. If you take the British Airways, the Lufthansa in Europe, there's no national carrier anymore. You only have flag carriers that represent the industry. In the United States, for example, also, there's no more national carrier, you only have flag carriers. So national carrier is a thing of the past. And with oil today, with our limited resources that we have in Nigeria, I don't think national carrier is a need for Nigeria today, because if you take what we have at oil today at 50 naira or $50 a barrel on the average and going down to $40, if you take our needs, our wants and our likes, if you put national carrier, how many percentage of Nigerians are really flying? And with our resource today, are we going to put $5 billion into a national carrier that will probably not have an end? Definitely will not have an end. And it is, to me, a distraction to the government of today that we all voted for and we're hooting to succeed, to be floating a national carrier idea to the government. Government should look more into a flag carrier and how to encourage the industry, which we have, that it's really in its infancy stage today and not where we should be. Because if you take Nigeria aviation, its contribution to the GDP at 0.4% is a shame. We're not talking about 1%, we're talking about 0.4%. When we have countries like Emirates contributing 27% to their GDP and 28% by Ethiopian Airways, Nigeria has no reason. We have the same catalyst and the same geographical location like those countries to contribute meaningfully into our aviation. The World Bank has said capital flight out of Africa is about 11 billion, and Nigeria accounts for 60% of that. So we should be looking at how to harness those kind of money floating out of our country or floating out of Africa than floating a national carrier at this time.
The Nigerian Police Force says it has completed the court arraignment of 5 suspects in the October 2nd twin bombings in Kuje and Nyanya areas of Abuja, Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. Speaking in his office at the force headquarters, Abuja, Inspector General of Police Solomon Arase said after careful and discreet investigations into the recent bombings that took place in the outskirts of Abuja, the Nigerian Police Force presented the suspects to the Federal High Court in Abuja for prosecution. At least 18 people were killed after the multiple bomb explosions went off in the Nigerian capital. The first 2 struck Kuje Township, one by a suicide bomber near a police station and the other a bomb at a market. Another bomb exploded at a bus stop at Nyanya, a settlement in the outskirts of the Nigerian capital. Speaking on how the 5 suspects were apprehended, the Police Inspector General said they were arrested at Karamajiji village along Airport Road, Abuja. He also said dangerous materials such as iPads, laptops and iPhones, and phones actually, which are believed to be used in making bombs, were recovered from them. The Lagos State government has donated 150 million naira to 3 northeast states that have witnessed more acts of terrorism perpetrated by the Boko Haram insurgents in Nigeria. Officials of Adamawa, Borno and Yobe states governments were presented with 3 checks of 50 million naira each by the governor of Lagos State, Akinwumi Ambode. Speaking at the event held in Abuja, Governor Ambode said the citizens of Lagos State and his government stand in solidarity with the states that have seen over 5 years of terrorism. While condemning the activities of the Boko Haram sect members, he also assured the affected states that they were not alone in their current plight as the Nigerian government continues to strive to end the insurgency. Nigeria's Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, has directed companies using supernumerary police, otherwise known as spy, to stop the use of police uniform for their operations across the country. On or before January the 1st, 2016, the IGP gave the directive at a meeting with security managers of companies using spy police for their internal security. He said the measure is part of his administration's renewed strategy to fight crime across the country. A statement issued by Police Force spokesperson, acting ACP Olabisi Kolawole in Abuja said the measures also aimed at curtailing the activities of criminally-minded persons who disguise in police uniform to perpetrate their nefarious activities. However, the statement added that IGP Arase has approved the use of a newly designed grey and black trousers as the new uniform to be worn by spy police officers nationwide. Niger State Governor Abubakar Sani Bello has commended the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, that's TET Fund now, for keeping its system of accountability in interventions in tertiary education in Nigeria intact. The governor of the North Central State, who paid a courtesy call to TET Fund in Abuja, said his visit was basically to appreciate the fund for its intervention in institutions in Niger State and to inquire more on the disparity in interventions, which he said has led to Bayero University, Kano, having more interventions from TET Fund than all institutions in Niger State. Executive Secretary of TET Fund, Professor Sulaiman Bagoro, said TET Fund is very protective of the accountability aspect of its institutional image, adding that nobody can illegally take TET Fund money peacefully.
The opportunity is one, to thank the ES and TET Fund management for the efforts made so far in Niger State in some of our tertiary institutions which are visited. On the second, to ask why BUK has more interventions than all the institutions in Niger State. I don't want to blame TET Fund. I think we'll take some of the responsibility. It took time to explain to me the way you operate here. And by God's grace, inshallah, when I go back, we'll do some certain corrections. I know some of the institutions that I've visited, like the College of Education in Mina, have seen some problems. But then, today's visit has accorded me the opportunity to find out a lot about TET Fund and how TET Fund operations are.
Your Excellency, sincerely, like you said, when you said you, after going to BUK, you thought there was some disparity. And that Your Excellency, you were very patient enough to give me the opportunity to rationalize to you the possible basis for that observed disparity. But more importantly, that His Excellency, you were very patient enough to listen also to the details that informed the implementation of our projects in TET Fund, for which at the end you came out with the conclusion that from the records you are seeing accountability.
Well, we'll take a short break and news now. We'll be right back.
Hello, you're welcome. You're watching the Funny White Man Show, which is the biggest, the brightest, and the most entertaining show in Africa.
Funny white man, funny white man, funny white man, but this way you talk, it's too much. Give me 5,000 man, that's you. It's too much. So you get it like, make you move along the street. Ah, yeah, make sure like there, I'm going girl. You know, my own people, actually. Yeah, fine, it's fun. I enjoy it. And I'm one of those very few.
I'm forever taking it personal. I will say 160 million Nigerians are corrupt. How? Brother, I'm looking for you.
Yeah, but it's a growth, and this is the time to build business. I know the pitfalls, I know what to do and what not to do. But there are months where you get business and months.
You know how we do, how we train them. We did the way you did.
Hello, you're welcome. You're watching Trending Matters on the Funny White Man Show. Of course, they will bring you trending issues just to entertain and tickle your fancy.
Welcome back. Oil prices rose above $48 a barrel on Thursday, propelled by technical buying. Now, this comes as investors reevaluated U.S. data that showed falling stockpiles of fuel as well as higher crude inventories. Brent for December delivery rose 63 cents to $48.48 a barrel, while U.S. crude for December delivery climbed 40 cents to $45.60 a barrel. Oil prices came under renewed pressure from worries about a global glut this week after U.S. crude inventories rose more than twice what analysts had expected. Now, officials said oil experts from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and non-member nations made no agreement this week to take steps to boost prices after talks in Vienna on Wednesday. The United Nations has accused Czech authorities of systematic rights violation in their treatment of refugees and migrants. UN's Human Rights Chief Ziad Rad Al Hussein said the Czech Republic was holding migrants in degrading conditions for up to 90 days. He added that the migrants are also being strip-searched to find money to pay for their detention. He also expressed alarm that the detention policy was accompanied by increasingly xenophobic public statements, including Islamophobic statements by President Milos Zeman and a public petition against immigration launched by former President Václav Klaus. The UN refugee agency UNHCR says the vast majority of those making the northward journey from Turkey through Greece often hoping to reach Germany as refugees rather than economic migrants and have a right to protection and asylum. While other European countries had implemented policies to restrict the movement of migrants, the Czech Republic was unique in its routine detention of migrants for long periods, Hussein said in a statement. He said the measures taken appeared to be designed to deter migrants and refugees from entering the country or staying there. Now, a masked man with a sword has killed a pupil and a teacher at a school in Sweden. The suspect, clad in black, apparently posed for photos with students ahead of the attack in the western town of Trollhättan. Two further victims, a pupil and a teacher, are seriously injured. The attacker was shot by police and has died of his injuries. He was 21 and residents in Trollhättan, the police has confirmed. Let's turn to sports now. Real Madrid, and that's about Real Madrid actually. Spanish anti-corruption police are investigating corruption claims leveled against 10-time European champions Real Madrid ahead of the November 21 El Clasico showdown against Barcelona. Spanish radio station Cadena Cope leaked a document presented to the police by a lawyer, Jacinto Vicente, which claims that Madrid are putting pressure on an unnamed assistant referee to make calls that would favor the Los Blancos. The 6-page-long document also suggests that the referees committee preferred the assistant referee to give the decisions because in a game earlier this season, some favorable decisions from another referee generated too much controversy. The official, who has remained anonymous, claimed that the referee for the game has been instructed him to call the shots in favor of Madrid. Complex matters there. UEFA has opened a disciplinary case against Manchester City after City fans booed the UEFA anthem before Wednesday night's Champions League clash against Sevilla at the Etihad Stadium. UEFA's Control, Ethics and Disciplinary Body says it will deal with the case on October 19th. Now, sections of City fans often boo the anthem by way of protesting against financial fair play rules put in place by UEFA in recent seasons, and European football's governing body has decided to look into this latest incident. Meanwhile, UEFA has confirmed opening proceedings against Ukrainian club Dynamo Kiev for an alleged racist behavior during their Champions League goalless draw against Chelsea. Footage of the incident captured on video apparently shows a group of Dynamo fans attacking 4 black men after spotting them in a neighboring section of the NSK Olimpijski. Well, very bad. We shouldn't be talking about this, but, you know, it keeps recurring in football. Very, very sad. That's it on News Now. We thank you very much for watching. Continue to stay tuned to TV360.